All right, everyone. The other day, Amy Klobuchar, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that 100% correctly, but as I'll explain, it doesn't matter. She announced her 2020 candidacy, and the reaction was basically nobody gives a fuck. She got totally outshined by everything else that was happening, and rightfully so. In any given political race, you're going to have some people that are doomed from the start. Klobuchar, for all intents and purposes, I hate to say this, but the fact that her last name is difficult to pronounce is actually a significant political impediment. Yeah, how do you spread word when you can't? How do you trend as easily when people can't spell your name? It's sort of like if your name was Aloysius Zimmerflossen or something like that, it might be a little bit difficult. Fitting it on a fucking sign might be difficult at that point. Now you must short things. Trump, Obama, McCain, Romney, something like that. You ever noticed the shortness of names involved within politics? Hell, if someone has a longer name, they tend to shorten it to a nickname. They change the name legally. Beto. Something. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, Klobuchar is doomed. Here's the thing. The initial response to her giving her speech in the first place was essentially bemusement. Because she's sitting there in the middle of a snowstorm. By the end of it, her hair was like covered. Literally, Trump said she looked like Frosty the Snowman or something. Or Mrs. Frosty, probably. But the other part is this. You've had preemptive strikes on her with regards to even her own aides and staffers. It is not good when a significant number of people you've worked with in a political capacity dogpile you on day one of your campaign. Not a good thing. Their tales are essentially she overworked them, she was repeatedly unkind, even for the smallest problem or infraction she'd fly off the handle, she threw things around in a rage, at some point actually hit somebody accidentally, although it was an accident, supposedly, hit him with a binder. Oh, was it a binder full of women, I wonder? A little bit of an antiquated political reference. Rather sad, that was a funny election. Binders full of women, horses and bayonets, killing Big Bird, I think it was. Mitt Romney was full of it. I still shed a tear of comedic joy when I think about the campaign that he ran. 2016 was better, though. Klobuchar is an afterthought. In any race, you're going to get some people that are like that are basically dross. They're just basically filler. They don't have a chance right out of the gate. You had this in the last election, technically. Now, what was his name? Chafee, I think was his name. O'Malley, and then Jim Webb. They were never viable. Now, Jim Webb I would have liked. He had some good ideas. It's not like he wasn't a fairly well-known and well-received individual. Business Democrat, sort of a blue dog in some senses. I think that he could have potentially won the election, but the thing is, he was never a serious candidate. Because the Democratic Party has stopped being a serious party. And therein lies their problem. They are being dragged further and further left. The campaign season begins with a slew of far leftists joining up. You don't really have a moderate in the field yet. The closest thing they have is Gillibrand, and Gillibrand's not going to become the nominee. At this point, they've already basically annihilated her. She's probably in last place, or she's down with Julian Castro. They need to do more comprehensive polling of the current field, like limited to just these individuals. Who would you choose? Do a weekly rolling sort of thing with that. I have a feeling that Kamala is probably on top with Elizabeth Warren, which is hilarious because, again, two far-left, non-viable individuals. Both from extremely blue areas, so there's no advantage there. They're not from, like, competitive regions. Yeah, they would get stomped by Trump. I guarantee that they would get stomped. I'm still looking at a situation where there's a 95+% chance Trump gets reelected simply because there's nobody capable of stepping to him. Especially in the wake of the taxes that people file. They're like, and discussed this with Chris Whalen the other day, well, tax returns are smaller than they were by like 8%. Yes, but as Whalen described, but your paycheck was bigger. So it balances out completely. You made more money, it's just at the end of the year, you notably got a little bit less back if you're low income or something. Well, fucking who gives a shit? You shouldn't be relying upon your tax return. You should be structuring. I realize it can be hard. If you're like really low income, you're already taking assistance or something. You should try to do everything you can not to rely too much on that. Like literally tighten your belt some. Trust me, by the way, I know how shitty that really is. For the first fucking 28 years of my life. So, don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming the poor for anything. It's the fucking government's fault. We'll just raise the minimum wage. It won't cause the price of goods and services to rise. Bunch of morons. They don't know how to manage an economy, but Trump does. He's managing the economy just fine. It's roaring ahead. Growth has outpaced all expectations. Wage growth is now at its highest level in 15 years. Taxes are down. Consumer confidence is up. Business confidence is up. We're tearing up shitty trade deals. He's trying to fix the border problem. We'll see if it happens. Economically, he's an A-plus grade president right now. Stock market's roaring on ahead again. By the way, it's back to the Obama economy because things are going well. The second the stock market has an off day, it suddenly becomes the Trump economy. Just for a little while, though, when it inevitably rises again. Morons. Every single one of them. Amy Klobuchar is completely doomed. What's her platform? Can anyone, including her fans, tell me anything about her platform? I don't know. I don't know anything about her platform. I have a general idea of what Kamala Harris wants. I know a little bit about what Elizabeth Warren wants. I certainly know what Tulsi Gabbard is inclined towards. I don't really know anything about many of these other people. Like Cory Booker, he shoots out of the gate and then disappears. You haven't heard anything about him lately, have you? Really, the standouts are Warren simply because she's got the most name recognition before she gets in, and Kamala Harris for being sort of the leader of the far left pack. That's basically what she is. The most viable person there, Julian Castro, is a complete afterthought. The second most viable is Gillibrand. She is too. That shows the direction of the Democratic Party is going off a cliff. They're going to do what they did in the Carter era. They're going to go so far to the left, overstretch so much that they're going to lose. And then they're gonna collapse. It's exactly like Carter Reagan all over again. Somebody that is not taken seriously, in Reagan's case, little political experience, in Trump's case, none, when he first gets elected, wins, basically on a campaign slogan, which was exactly the same, Make America Great Again. That was Reagan's 1980 proposal, slogan rather. People that weren't taken seriously at first, people that came way from behind. Reagan trailed Carter by a good 10 points for most of that election. Won anyway. Basically known as a celebrity. He had been a B-list actor and a lifeguard. He was kind of the swarthy dude, the cowboy look, the Marlboro Man. That's what Ronald Reagan was. Nobody fucking took that seriously. Jimmy Carter imploded. The Democratic Party imploded. They handed Reagan the presidency. Then the economy roared to life. And despite the fact that everyone on the left still thought he was the Antichrist, he's going to cause a nuclear war, he's crazy, oh my God, the good days are going to come to an end at some point, he broke a couple campaign promises, he got reelected anyway. By flying colors because of the way the Electoral College works. That's, I think, what's going to happen with Trump in 2020. I think he's likely to be reelected because there's no Democrat to oppose him. How is a centrist Democrat even going to win? The only way that can happen, look, the only thing that can save the Democrats right now is if Biden or someone comparable gets in. They get their 25-30% of party support, so they come from behind. It's not like they're leading by a huge margin, but the far left side of the field is so packed that they all attack one another, number one, and they exhaust one another. None of them can ever match his support simply because they're being fielded in by 5 or 6 other people. There are too many of them. If you had any one far left candidate, they could probably beat him because the Democratic Party has gone out to left field, which is why they can lose the election. They'll alienate every centrist. Unfortunately, unless you have a situation like that, where someone who otherwise would only have maybe 30% of support can still win, which is what Trump did, by the way, in a very crowded field. He was never leading by 50% or more. He never had 50% support, except late in the race in a few states he managed to get higher numbers. He was riding at the mid to upper 30s, the low 40s in most of the early states. That's the margin he won by. But if you get 5 other people in the race that are splitting the rest of the vote, yeah, it's a problem for anyone else who's trying to match you. Ted Cruz is the closest they came, which is hysterical. He wasn't even eligible. You could have a situation like that, barring that eventuality, and with the Democrats' particular structure of rules, I'm not sure that can happen. I don't see any way in which the candidate isn't like far left, like a Kamala Harris. How are they going to go back to the center for the general election? They're not going to be able to. And Trump already cornered the market on sucking the air out of the room by saying off-the-wall shit, so that's not going to help him. They're going to have to move to the center without being able to. They will lose spectacularly. You can see blue states flip. I do mean that. Yes, I expect that if a far leftist runs against Trump, Virginia flips red. That's one prediction. Wisconsin might go back to the Democratic fold, but if it's Elizabeth Warren especially, she'll probably lose Nevada because the Native American voters will punish her. Might lose New Mexico as well. Trust me, it's possible. We're in the middle of a paradigm shift. Part of it is demographically related to race. Part of it is related to the fact that Trump is doing more for the economy insofar as the lower class, sort of the shanty town America is concerned. He's doing very well. The inner city is doing better because of Donald Trump. That's going to translate into votes that the Republicans haven't gotten in a generation, at least since the Reagan era. It's going to be a bloodbath. He's going to wipe them off the face of the earth at this rate because of their party's dysfunction. They've got so many leftists. Here's the other problem. Look at the Democrats, the way that they do business, coronating people with superdelegates and so forth, the DNC operating behind the scenes. If they manage to nominate a centrist, which they would otherwise need, will they not alienate the far left? They'll say, oh, well, look at this, we might as well just not vote, because basically it's just another Trump. An old white dude like Joe Biden, an old white dynastic politician, was VP before, boring, and they won't turn out, it's not going to get anyone excited. They need that excitement too. Essentially what you'd have is a weird situation where Biden would have to get like Kamala Harris as his VP. Then the business Democrats probably don't vote for him. They're like, oh, okay, an old man who probably dies in office and leaves us a socialist president. Yeah, it's not going to work too well. Trump's going to have a field day. Unless Trump dies or unless the Democratic Party really gets its act together, he's probably won 2020. Klobuchar. Fucking who gives a shit? Nobody knows who she is. Nobody knows who Julian Castro is either. I mean, people who maybe analyze politics more are more keyed into it. We know who he is. I look at the sort of things he proposes and especially the way he carries himself and speaks, and I say, he's sort of like their Obama. He could be their next Obama. He'd have a chance. He could even technically flip Texas, although it's not particularly likely. Nobody else is going to do that. All these others are from far blue districts. What the fuck is that going to do for the Democratic Party? That's about all. Peace out.